I still remember my dad, especially now when I look back, my dad basically said, girl, you got to see the world, when you still can. We had this chance. Just get out first and see it with your own eyes. In China, we have a saying, to be a wise person, you have to read 10,000 books and you have to walk 10,000 miles.
That was artist Misstencil, who happens to be one of the 6 artists in our Keep It Local show on May 23rd. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and small businesses that make this city so special. In this episode, meet and get to know Misstencil. She shares the story of how her parents met in communist China and how her grandparents mostly raised her. Part 1 culminates with how she was able to leave her home country. Please be sure to RSVP for our Keep It Local show at Babylon Burning in South of Market. Find Humanitics links on our website and social media. Okay, on with the show. Here's Misstencil.
Where do I even start? Okay, I was born in China. And my parents are very interesting people. So as you probably know, China went through a lot in the past 100 years. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, my parents were on the unfortunate side of the history because my dad was from a very prominent business family, mm-hmm. So capitalist family, wealthy, and but when he was born, it was already, the new China was founded. Mm-hmm. So my mom came from a family of professors, mm-hmm. and educated family.
Okay.
So
like both of her parents were teachers, were
yeah,
professors?
Actually,
wow.
It's very rare in those days. So mm-hmm. my grandparents, my mom's side, they actually spoke a few words of English.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they were, mm-hmm. They were really educated. That was during the war, mm-hmm. And later on, my grandfather worked at the university as a professor.
Can I ask what town or city or province?
So it's kind of complicated. So my mom's side is Cantonese, and they moved to Hunan Province.
Okay.
And that's where my dad was born. So
okay.
That's how my parents met. Yeah. And so my dad, when he was very young, he was abandoned by his family.
Okay.
Yeah, because at that time the political, situation was really bad, and he was brought up by his foster mother.
Okay.
And a foster sister, and even though they came from a very wealthy family, but because they came from, a capitalist family, mm-hmm. so they really looked down upon. They became homeless.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it was very, very rough.
Did he know his parents, or do you know your
He
grandparents?
knew, yeah.
Okay.
He knew.
They just couldn't raise him.
And his father basically was prosecuted, and died.
Wow.
And so he ended up just, he was the only son of the family.
Okay.
It's a very tragic story.
Yeah.
But my dad was a very talented man, and he was very good at school. But because of his family background, he was denied the opportunity to go to college, even though he was number one in the school. And so was my mom. So.
Do you know the story of how they met each other?
Yeah, later on they told me.
Okay.
My dad told me. My dad has a lot of interesting stories. I kind of regret I never really talked to him much. He actually passed away in 2013, so now he's gone. Yeah. However, he was dating a girl, and they were kind of engaged. So when he met, so when he met the girl's family, mm-hmm. They asked him, "So what kind of family, political background you're from?" So my dad had to be honest. Mm-hmm. And immediately they kicked him out. Because in those days, it means, your life will be changed, So he ended up, he couldn't find any girlfriends because nobody wanted to get near him because
Wow.
So I think it was till he was 30 he couldn't get a date.
Okay.
Even though he was really, really handsome and very talented.
And you said talented, yeah.
Yeah, very talented. So
talented. Can I ask at
Yeah.
at what kind of things?
he was very artistic, and
Oh.
he was an engineer, and then he was introduced to my mom. So on the first date, he told my mom, like, I have to tell you what kind of family background I'm from.
Let's get this out of the way.
Let's get it out of the way.
Right.
If you don't want to see me tomorrow, that's fine. And my mom's like, hey, I came from kind of similar background, and I want to give people like you a chance. So I don't care what people say.
Yay,
So,
Mom.
Yeah. So my mom was kind of rebellious that way.
Awesome.
So that's then they get married, and they back in those days you don't have a choice where to work. So basically, jobs were assigned to you, and they had to work in different parts of the country, in the mountains, and the conditions were very, very harsh. So
They were away from each other?
No, they were together.
Oh, okay.
So because of that, I was born in the mountains.
Oh.
It's funny, right after my dad died, my mom and I decided to make a trip to where I was born.
Wow.
And it was very emotional. So
Yeah, I bet.
my mom pointed out this shaft is not even a hospital clinic, because there's no hospital there. So
Right.
So it was totally falling apart, and there was a little room that was broken window. She said that's where you were born.
Oh, wow.
I actually took the piece of broken glass back to San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was no hospital. There was nothing. There was not even food. No
Right.
milk, no meat, no vegetables. And all the babies had to be sent to so-called daycare. So the parents have to work long hours.
Right.
After work, they have to attend political meetings until 10 o'clock at night. There was no time to raise kids.
Wow.
So my parents came over and said, you got to take her, somewhere else because, she can't grow up in a condition like this. So because of that, so I was kind of given to my grandparents since I was 8 months old.
On your mom's side?
Yeah, on my mom's side.
Okay.
Yeah. Until I was probably about 12.
Okay. You said at 8? From
8
8
months.
To, 8 months.
Yeah, so I basically
So
never...
12.
Yeah, I probably saw my parents once a year. And in those days, you didn't have a freedom to travel, to do anything. You only had probably about a week a year to see your family. And it was very, very far away. So because of that, I was kind of traumatized.
Yeah.
And so I was very depressed because everybody had mom and dad. I didn't.
Right.
And
Your
then-
earliest memories are with your grandparents?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I loved my grandparents. They were so nice to me. But I grew up to be a very lonely kid, extremely, extremely depressed. And you probably can't tell from talking to me right now, but I was the exact opposite person before. So I was horrible at school. I failed every single subject except for art.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't speak a word of English. And
Did they teach you English?
yeah, later on, yeah. Because I wasn't interested, and I was depressed. And so my parents basically had, got me out of school because, they were afraid they're going to lose me. It was that bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to go to get some doctor's permission, and then, she's out of school. She can't go to school.
Okay.
Because actually in Chinese culture, that's like you're the biggest loser if you don't go to school, So I actually had to do that twice. But then later on, my dad just said, you know what, I don't want you to go to school anymore because I want my daughter back, So
That's amazing.
I'll think a way to make a living for you. You could sell stuff on the street, whatever. Even for like highly educated family like mine. So, and this is actually a funny story. So they asked parents to have a meeting in a school after final exams and to talk about your kids. And back in those days, I had 63 students in my class.
Okay.
It's a pretty big class where compared to American size. And my ranking was number 62.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty bad. So my dad felt like he was losing his face. And then when he went to the meeting, you had like 60 parents there. And they would put your score, they would write down on the wall. So the first 31 students would be written on a red piece of paper. The losers, the second half, would be written on a white piece of paper. So my dad couldn't even locate my name anywhere until he saw, okay, it's on a white piece of paper and it's at the bottom. That's my daughter.
There's like no hiding.
No hiding, yeah. It's just public shaming, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That's just the Chinese way.
Right.
So they got me out of school, and then they sent me to a different kind of school that is not goal-oriented, that you don't have to go to college, but you know, it was that was in the 90s, so it was kind of experiment. So I think it was probably 15, 16. And then from then on, I started to change because I no longer have this pressure of doing stuff I don't like to do.
Right.
Yeah. And then when I graduated, the school decided to send me and one other girl to Shanghai. And it was an experiment.
Okay.
So the other girl was the best student, basically a teacher's pet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not only she got straight A's and everything, and she was really enthusiastic about joining, Communist Party, and wanted to be the head of a student union, blah blah blah. And I'm just recovering loser, basically. And
still doing art?
No, I wasn't doing art at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was just the only subject that you liked earlier.
Yeah, but
okay.
there was no art class, basically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to Shanghai.
Okay.
So my mom told me that when she was 18, she was relocated to a farm to be re-educated or reformed. When I was 18, I went to the biggest city in the country.
Scary? Was it scary?
It was exciting because even though I grew up miserable, however, I really missed that period of time in China. It was full of optimism. You can just feel the optimism in the air. Everyone was happy and everything was authentic. And so I was surrounding myself with all this excitement in Shanghai. Back in those days, they didn't even have the skyscrapers.
Okay.
I saw they were building the skyscrapers.
And can I ask, what did they sent you and this other young woman to Shanghai to do what?
Oh, for college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they wanted to see what's going to come out of us,
Okay.
So it was perfect for me because I needed to leave home. That was the most important thing ever happened to me. Step number 1 is to leave home.
And you knew that at the time?
I didn't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other funny story is that, I saw McDonald's for the first time. I heard so much about it. So my mom and dad, we just got to a train station. Like, you know what? I heard about this famous restaurant called McDonald's. Let's go give it a try.
Okay.
So we went to McDonald's for the very first time, and I don't recognize anything on the menu. But it had a picture. So I just pretended I knew everything. I just point this. I want this and this and that. So. So we needed to have a whole table full of desserts and nothing else. And my dad was like, "This is American food? Oh my God, give me some chicken fried rice. I can't
Seriously.
get it out here." So,
did they have the characters like the Ronald McDonald?
Yeah, but
Grandma
I never
Small?
had that kind of food before.
Right.
Hamburgers or, I don't know what those are about.
Yeah.
So I had a wonderful time in Shanghai. So the other turning point came when one day I went to downtown shopping, and I saw a piece of newspaper that says, "Hey, come to this meeting. We have wonderful schools in Switzerland, and there will be free cookies offered at the
Oh.
at the meeting. So I went there for the free cookies.
I was going to say,
Okay.
we already decided that you like dessert.
Yeah, exactly. So I went to the meeting. Right now I already forgot what was the meeting was like. I went straight to the cookies.
For the cookies.
For the cookies. However, they had this beautiful brochure printed introducing those business schools in Switzerland.
Okay.
And you know how beautiful Swiss Alps are, right? With snow mountains.
I've seen
with-
pictures.
Yeah,
yes.
so like postcards, right?
Yeah, ridiculous.
And back in those days in China, people like to hang calendars of beautiful pictures in them, like Bahamas. And then, even though you never get a chance to get out of the country, you just hang it on the wall. It's something pretty to look at. So like, okay, I want to take it to my mom and dad and live and see how pretty this country is. So it was Chinese New Year, so I took the brochures home, and I just forgot about it. And my dad picked it up on the table and said, "What's this?" And I said, "Oh, something pretty picture to look at, I thought you might like it.
Could be a calendar.
It could be a calendar." And my dad opened it up. It has all the, wonderful things about the business schools and blah, blah, blah. And that was in the 90s. That was in the late 90s. And most people didn't have the money to go anywhere.
Right.
My dad was fortunate to have worked on one project the year before. So this is the other thing about my dad. He was such a talented man. He saved the country millions and millions, and he had a lot of inventions.
Oh, wow.
He innovated a lot of things, but he did not benefit anything from it.
Right.
He did not get promoted. All the stuff he invented were taken by someone else, under someone else's name, and you do not have the freedom. You do not have the freedom to transfer to another job because everybody wanted to keep him working there, but without paying him. And because you coming from the capitalist family, you didn't have a choice. You had
It's like
to
a different form of exploitation, right?
Yes,
They're exploiting the hell out of him.
Totally.
Just not in a capitalistic way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, one year he did one project. He made a little bit of money. So he asked me, "Do you want to go to one of those schools?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" Never in my mind ever imagined I would leave China. Unlike a lot of my friends I met later in their life, they wanted to come to the United States since they were junior school. That was their goal. And for me, I was fortunate to even graduate from any school.
Right.
I was basically, so terrible at anything. So to leave the country and to go out to the world, I never imagined I would do that. But I said, you know what? Why not?
Let's do it, Dad. Now that you
We
asked.
only have money for first year, but just go, try it out.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. So
Also, I mean, a little bit poetic that you're born in the mountains.
Yeah.
They're very different, but and then you're like, I'm getting out, I'm going to the mountains.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the experience was very interesting, to say the very least. So I still remember the day. My dad, my parents, and my classmates and their parents saw me off at the airport, and you were not allowed to exchange more than $2,000 at that time, and that's not enough for the tuition,
Right.
So I had to go to black market to get some US dollars. And then I couldn't get enough. So I was asking everybody, who has US dollars? Who has US dollars? So eventually one of my friend's mom worked at the foreign trade company as an accountant. So she said, we have some dollars, we'll help you out. So I remember the first time she took me to the back of the room, opened a safe. It was
Wow.
so many stack of US dollars. That was the
shit.
first time I saw the US currency.
Right.
And I had no idea what the value was, whatever. So they gave me a whole stack. We exchanged, and then I carried that in the backpack. That was a lot of money back then.
Damn, Like in hindsight, you're like, that was fucking sketch.
But I need to deposit money.
You
in the
had to
bank.
have it. Yeah.
So I went over to the Bund in Shanghai. Where all these famous banks in the 1920s. Later on, they serve different purposes. But anyway, so one of the banks is where I need to deposit money into. So it was lunchtime. There was a long line. And I was carrying this freaking whole backpack of US dollars, trying to deposit the money into the bank.
Was it enough that it was heavy?
No, it was not that much.
Okay.
I had a small bag.
Yeah.
But I had never seen that much money in my life. So when it was my turn, the teller asked me how much you want to deposit. I forgot the amount now, but I said, this is much. So they wanted me to count that in front of them to verify. So I think I counted 4 times. There's always $40 missing, which is a lot of money back then.
Sure.
So I was sweating like crazy. Like, what if somebody come into the bank right now and rob me? Like, my whole life, my whole family's savings, and everything will be gone.
Yikes.
Yeah, but eventually I got money in the bank, and then I left, and they saw me off at the airport. And years later, when I went back to China, my parents said, the day you left us, you walked straight into the gate, and you never looked back.
Oh.
You were so brave. Like, we were brokenhearted. You didn't even turn around and look at us. Because in those days, when you leave, that means you might never see your family again.
Right.
Like, a lot of people in this country, in America, they don't understand what it was like,
Because leaving's a big deal.
Leaving was a big deal. You had no money, broke. This future is so uncertain, But what my parents didn't know is my face was covered with tears. I didn't want to turn around and let me see that. So
Right.
I just left, and with the dollar stashed in my shoes, stashed in my jacket.
Amazing.
Because you were not allowed to take more than $2,000 back then out of the country.
Right.
Because it was controlled, So I took the flight, I think it was Swiss Air, and I landed in Zurich.
Wow.
And then I had to...
That's a really nice airline, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been on a couple flights on it.
Yeah, and I went to Geneva.
Oh, wow.
And I had to take the train to the town wherever I was going. But it was 11:30 at night. I had to catch the last train. And before that, I remember I have to deposit the US dollars into the Swiss bank account, into Swiss franc. And back in those days, they had 1,000 Swiss franc bill. So all my savings, it just turned into like a flat, small piece of paper. And it feels so unreal in my wallet because it feels nothing,
Right.
And that's all I had. And I remember I had to use a bathroom, and I didn't know that you need to insert coins.
The coins, yeah.
And I didn't have any coins, but I really need to use the bathroom. And my last train's going to leave in 5 minutes, and I have so many suitcases and everything, and I was by myself. Anyway, I got on the train, and I had no idea where to get off because the train announcement was in German and French.
I was going to ask about the languages, so German, French.
Yeah, so I picked a seat right next to the exit, ready to jump off the train at any time if that sounds even
close to where
it's supposed to go.
Right.
It was 11:30 at night. It was crazy. And several times I almost jumped, but it was not the right station.
I mean, a lot of people, I feel like, would be scared by a lot of the stories you just told me. Were you ever scared as a young person doing all this shit?
I was a little scared, but when
also
you're in the
just
middle
driven.
of it,
You're driven,
because
right?
You have no choice. You can't turn around, right? So I remember this guy sitting next to me. He saw me ready to jump a few times, and he said, "Where exactly are you trying to get off?" I said, "I don't know. I don't understand, German and French." And he said, "You know what? I'm gonna tell you," because he knows where I need to go. Because I told him the city name in English. And then he fell asleep. Oh, God. So should I wake him up or should I not?
It was late at night.
Yeah.
So, trains also put me to sleep.
I know.
Sorry.
So eventually I tried to jump off. He said, your station is like still a half an hour away. Don't worry. Oh. So anyway, so when I got off the train, it was dark. There was not even a single person at the train station, which is the exact opposite of China because it's always crowded and, hundreds of people at the train station. Yeah. So it felt like a ghost town. And there was no taxi or anything. And so I had to walk to where my school was. And I remember that day still. It was so quiet. It was almost scary because I'm the only one dragging a big ass suitcase down the street on the cobblestone, like clunk, clunk, clunk. And I feel like embarrassed, like I don't even know where I was going.
Did you already change the money from your shoes?
Yeah, I did. Okay. I did. And then eventually I found a school. So I knock on the door. There was this, the British guy opened the door. And he's, oh, welcome. And he said to me, the school starts tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m. So you arrived a few hours earlier. So that means you have to pay for your stay for one night. That was like almost $70 that night. I'm like, that's like my parents' probably a whole year's salary right there, And such a contrast with when I went to school in China. When I still remember the day when I try to get things set up in a dormitory. The teacher was like your family members. They will help you to put up this. They'll get food for you. And versus when I first arrived in Switzerland, Western country, the first thing they wanted from you is money.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to pay for a few hours staying here because you arrived a little bit earlier. Anyway, so I'm like, I started to regret the whole thing because, like, what am I getting myself into, Mm-hmm. Until the next morning, I opened my window. Oh my God. It's just exactly like the brochure.
Mm-hmm. You're like, I'm in the calendar now.
I'm in the calendar now. So that was it. So, so I started my journey. I still remember my dad, especially now when I look back, my dad basically said, girl, you got to see the world, when you still can. We had this chance. Just get out first and see it with your own eyes. In China, we have a saying, to be a wise person, you have to read 10,000 books and you have to walk 10,000 miles. So a lot of people read 10,000 books, but they never walk 10,000 miles.
Right.
So that's what happened.
That was Misstencil. Find her on social media at Misstencil. That's MISSTENCIL. Check back next week for part 2, which drops next Tuesday wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was created, curated, and produced by Otis McDonald. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in the 7th season, we have more than 250 episodes available wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out the refreshed website, which I'm still working hard to repopulate with all the episodes. That's storiedsf.com. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. You can also rate us on Spotify. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at storiedsf. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay weird, stay informed. Keep your eyes open, and we'll see you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.